Hey everyone, my name is Cordell, aka Hot Cocoa, and today I'm going to show you how to make a squelch, which is one of my favorite sounds. But more than that, I'm going to show you how to figure out what your favorite sounds are. So if that sounds cool, stick around. Alright, so a squelch, like I said, is one of my favorite sounds. It's just very textural. I can kind of feel it on my skin almost, which is part of why I like it. I suspect I have some kind of kinesthetic synesthesia personally. Haven't been formally tested for that. But I know this is one of my favorite sounds. I'm going to show you how I figured this out in a bit. But first I want to show you how to make it. So, to make a squelch, you need to have a lot of very small transients. A transient is like a hit or an attack, like a little click. It's what makes your snares and your drums punchy, is that first. And so a squelch actually has a bunch of these audible little transients in succession together. The first ingredient you need to make a squelch is a low sawtooth wave. A sawtooth wave has these big transients built into the waveform. Unlike a sine wave, which is all smooth, a sawtooth wave has these hard transients. You can use other types of wavetable synthesis or any kind of sound source you want, as long as it has these small little hits, and a sawtooth wave is perfect for that. In my case, I'm going to use wavetable, but I'm just going to put it onto a sawtooth wave. Next, you need a filter. So there's different kinds of filtering you can do to get squelchy, but really you want to move around these transients that are coming from the low sawtooth wave. So in my case, I'm going to use a bandpass filter. And what's really important to a good squelch is you want the filter to move around. So you're going to map this bandpass filter to an LFO, or a low frequency oscillator. And if we want to control its movement, we're going to create a macro by taking the speed of this LFO and the amount of this LFO, slam it onto a macro so we can play with it later. And finally, what you need in order to get the most out of these transients and to get the squelchiness squelching is some saturation. So in this case, I'm going to take the effects built into Wavetable, slam that onto a macro. I'm also going to just grab a good old-fashioned saturator, slam that onto a macro as well. So now I've got all of these macros that I can play with and manipulate and change, and some of which, like the LFO, actually move on their own, and that way we can get a lot of the squelchy movement that makes the sound so fun to me. So no one is just born out the womb knowing what their favorite kind of noise is. And everyone has a different type of noise or sound that could be considered their favorite, just like many people have different kinds of favorite colors, for example. But few people have their own favorite noise. But if you're watching this video, I suspect you're interested in sound, you're interested in music. And so if you're going to be producing or engaging in sound in any kind of meaningful way, it can help if you know what kind of sounds you like and what kind of sounds are your favorite. So in my case, squelches are some of the sounds that I just love to make. I don't use it in everything, but I know for sure hearing that brings me great joy. This is a type of wisdom. I've gotten to dive into the literature of the psychology of wisdom. One of my favorite books is this one by Robert Sternberg, which has a bunch of different chapters from different authors, notably a chapter from my personal academic mentor, Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And this whole book really, though, breaks down how wisdom is developed. And I would personally say that knowing your favorite kind of sound is an element of having some personal wisdom. So I'm going to give you some ingredients just like I did for the squelch, but in this case I'm going to give you some ingredients for how to develop your own wisdom, especially as it pertains to knowing your favorite sound. First of all, you have to have diverse experiences. I like to describe this as impressions. You need to have lots of different experiences make an impression on you. You need to be open to experiencing these things if you want to figure out what kind of things are your favorite. For example, how are you going to know what your favorite color is if you haven't seen a vast array of colors? My favorite color is a kind of teal-y turquoise, especially when it's contextualized with pinks and oranges. But if I'd never seen those colors, I wouldn't really know. So what's really important is you get impressed by a lot of different sounds, which means you have to listen to a lot of different music from a lot of different artists. The more diverse, the better. these impressions need to be paired with reflections. This is actually one of the most important parts of the chapters in this book about developing wisdom, is you have to spend active time sitting and self-reflecting on how a certain sound makes you feel. In this case, you can listen to a song and just think about it. You can even rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. You can think about how you felt in your body. In my case, these kind of squelches, I almost feel it on my arms and on my skin, and I like it. That could freak some people out, I suppose. But yeah, I really like it. This reflection is how you figure this out, because if you don't reflect, you might not realize that you hate this kind of sound or you love this kind of sound. And the more you can think about it after an experience, you have an aesthetic experience, and then you really start to ponder, how do I feel about that? What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? This reflection piece is crucial. After you've had some impressions and you've done some reflections, the last step is to do some expressions. In this case, it's to make some stuff with this sound that you've started to like. You can build the knowledge that you want to in terms of making sounds, but knowledge is actually distinct from wisdom. But you can pair them together because it's kind of hard to have one without the other. So in this case, you're going to build the knowledge of how to make, say, a squelch, and then you're going to use that to express yourself in some way. In the case of sound, you want to make some of your own sounds that are inspired by the sound you like, or make some music using these sounds that you really enjoy. In my case, I spent a lot of time writing music and developing sounds that have all these really tiny little transient hits. For example, in one of my latest tracks, Big Sludge, I used a bunch of small rocks that I kind of rubbed together and kind of shook around in my hand. And every time these little rocks would hit each other, I'd get those kind of small transients, just like we saw in our really low sawtooth wave. Check it out. And by expressing myself through this music and through these sounds, I was able to build an even deeper relationship with some of these squelchy, tiny, transient sounds. So when you take in these impressions, you reflect on those experiences, and then you express yourself through some of these sounds, or it could be anything really that's really made an inspiration for you. You'll start to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and eventually you'll start to figure out what kind of things are your favorite. And producing or making art or expressing yourself using some of your favorite materials and mediums is just another way to feel more authentic and feel more connected to the work that you're doing. And so in my case as a producer and a sound designer, one of the ways I express myself through sound is by getting my hands on it. So what I want to do is take that patch that we just made for creating a squelch, and I'm going to play it out. I'm going to express myself through the patch and see what happens. If you thought that was helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. I read all of them. I love to reply to them. Tell me what kind of sounds you really like to make, or give me some tips on what kind of things you want to hear from me next. And if you want to learn more about how I made these luscious silky wubs underneath some of these squelches, you can check this video out next. See you in the next one. Peace.